Darren Burgess, welcome back to PTV to answer questions from our fans about you and your new role as the High Performance Manager at the Port Adelaide Football Club. First up is from a Facebook follower, Darren McAllister, who asks that he's curious about the midweek training schedule and how this will change from the current situation or the previous situation, and how you think it will improve our on-field performance.
I don't think the midweek schedule is going to change too much. It's probably more the content of the training that may change a little bit. Obviously, that's going to change with a new coach. But probably my thoughts are that the boys might train similar times, similar durations, but perhaps with a little bit more intensity and maybe just alter the content a little bit. So I don't think the actual midweek schedule is going to change too much from what it was last couple of years.
Next is from Benjamin Selfishberger. How do you or what methods get the players to execute perfect skills under fatigue?
You have to practice it, and you have to practice it, and you have to practice it. That's about it. You have to try and get them as fatigued as they might be in a game, and then try and execute the skills that way. And obviously, you keep doing it until you're satisfied with the result. But the only way you can do it is to put them under fatigue in training.
Zach Netz asks, who tends to have a higher level of fitness, AFL or soccer players?
They're very similar. From an endurance point of view, they're very similar. They cover the same sort of distances in games. The AFL players are heavier and stronger. The soccer players are probably more agile and quicker off the mark. So it depends which variable you're looking at, but overall they're pretty similar.
Hayley Khan has asked, what have you learnt in the EPL that you see as transferable to the AFL and our team's performance and further improvement?
There's a lot, but probably briefly the intensity that the EPL guys train at. I think tactically as well, there's a lot of tactics that go along in soccer that are very similar and can be applied in AFL. But it's probably, from a physical point of view, probably the training intensity and also a lot of agility and speed work that the soccer players are quite good at, and we used to do a lot over there.
Adam Ellershaw has asked a similar question, and that is, what have you learnt from European football and your experience there that can be applied to AFL that other clubs here may not already do?
Hopefully there's a few technologies and things like that you're exposed to over there that are not necessarily available here, so a few things like that. And as well, I think that the speed and agility of the soccer players is something that our AFL players can learn a bit from.
We've got one here from someone called Tool Spanner, and he's asked what your views on high altitude training are.
I think it's okay in certain situations. The research out there is a little bit undecided as to whether it helps team sports going to an altitude camp and then whether that lasts throughout the whole season. I think if you expose people to altitude fairly regularly, then it might help out. But I think in a team sport situation, there's probably a few other ways you can get the players fit that reap very good benefits as well as altitude.
Megan McDonald has asked, how will the differing fitness needs of individual players be approached with a common goal of improving on-field performance at the club, or will a one-size-fits-all approach be taken?
No, we'll certainly be doing an individual approach, and that can happen in a few ways. One is through the training itself. When you play players in various positions, then they're obviously learning to get the fitness from that position. So we might have a full field game, and obviously you play the forwards and the backs and the backs, so they get exposed to that. The other thing is we know from the staff that are here exactly what players do in games, and we'll replicate that in training for the individual. So it won't be a line every player up and run them the same distances. It'll be different distances, different times, different requirements for each position. So it'll be a totally individual approach.
We've had a few questions from our Twitter followers at PAFC, and JT has asked on Twitter, is underage fitness training developing to a point where more first-year players will be ready to play AFL from the get-go?
I don't think so. That was part of my PhD project, was to look at under-18s fitness requirements to AFL fitness requirements, and the gap's actually getting bigger between the under-18s level and the AFL. So there's certainly still going to be an integrated approach of those first-year players in my experience and my opinion from the research, there's still a 1 to 3 year window that you need to build those guys up to AFL level.
Kelly Foreman has asked on Twitter what has been lacking in previous seasons, impacting the physicality and performance of the team, and how could you improve it in your new role?
I wasn't here for the past few seasons, so it's pretty hard for me to comment on that. Hopefully, I'll just be able to bring a little bit different approach and a little bit more experience from a global point of view, and hopefully that'll help the team in their fitness.